Item on our agenda, I guess I will just note that everyone on the Plan Commission appears to be here. Thank you. First item on our agenda is a public hearing, discussion and possible action on approving a conditional use at 915 North 5th Street to allow for a long-term supportive home in a neighborhood mixed-use zoning district. Maybe before I open that public hearing, I would invite the folks from the Hager House to maybe give a little presentation on what this is.
Sure, how is that?
Perfect, thank you.
Well, thank you guys so much for your time and this opportunity. My name is Jessica Brettel. I am the founder and president of the Hager House, and I'm here with my board of directors, Megan Boucher, James Thompson, and Deanne Westerhouse, as well as a lot of other supporters here today, and we are seeking the conditional use permit for 915 North 5th Street to open the Hager House. In short, the Hager House would be a long-term home for women and children in crisis. And we just thought we'd go ahead and show one of our promotional videos that we've put together. It'll give you a lot of information in that.
Get a little closer to you. Maybe we'll do that. Okay.
Right now, one out of 5 families in Ymca is a single mom carrying the full weight of raising her children alone. The statistics show that 70% of single moms feel burdened by shame and the perception of their circumstances, and so they stay away. Their stories are personal, often misjudged, and marked by painful stigma. What if we sought to understand where they are coming from and impact where they are going? Regardless of how these women came to be parenting alone, God's heart is clear. Here are just some of the distressing realities. They live in poverty, even though they tend to work more hours. 1/3 are considered food insecure. They face difficult housing obstacles with high cost and low availability. They have to choose between income or higher education opportunities, and they often face high child care expenses. And despite a mother's best efforts, statistically, these children are 30 times more likely to be targeted by sexual predators. They make up 90% of runaway statistics, and they fill 75% of prisons and juvenile programs. These kids are 10 times more likely to do drugs, 10 times more likely to drop out of school, and 5 times more likely to commit suicide. So where do we start? By lifting some of the burden, being the hands and feet of Jesus and loving as he would, and watch as they transform into strong, healthy families. In order to come alongside these families in the central Wisconsin area, we are opening the Hager House. The Hager House will be a faith-based home for these families to live while surrounded by a community of support. By alleviating the burden of basic needs for 6 to 18 months, we will not only provide a stable home environment, own success. During their stay, we will help with budgeting and financing, parenting skills, educational and job opportunities. We will focus on all areas of health and spiritual growth and help them feel connected to churches and their communities. The Hagar House is hoping to open its doors to families in the next year. These precious families need to hear that they matter to our community. And to do that, we need your help to make this home a reality. Every dollar donated equals transformation for moms, their kids, and our community. Together, we really can change some of these statistics. The Hagar House, where offering respite and resources leads to renewal.
Sorry about the sound on that. I'm not sure.
We never know how technology is going to react in here, so
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, that's great. So 8 years ago, I unexpectedly found myself parenting alone. I had an 8-year-old and a not quite 2-year-old. And after years of being a stay-at-home mom, I suddenly had no income and no career to fall back on. I did not have family in the area, so I faced an overwhelming mountain of challenges on my own. Obstacles that are too many and too heavy for one person. So God in His mercy brought us a community of weight bearers who stepped in to help shoulder the load. They helped with childcare, meals, wise counsel, leaf raking, and friendship and coffee. So much coffee. And I can confidently say that without the Lord and this community of support, we would not be doing as well as we are today. And today, my children and I are doing really well. The Hagar House will offer that same support to other women and children in need because there is a really great need in the Wausau area. So let's try the second video.
Wausau community together, and wanting to know as single mothers out there.
We have definitely seen a huge need for this, and for a decade now we've lived here, have been working with families that are struggling, especially single moms and kiddos, even through foster care system and different things, and absolutely see a need for a place for them to get healing, to recover from wounds, and to just become whole. We are excited to just see the next steps and want to do whatever we can to support them.
I think it's a great idea for a resource in our community. That need support. I want to teach my kids that we need to support other families too.
I just think it's a wonderful idea and plan to just to come alongside these women in this community to help them just get on their feet as best we can.
I think it's desperately needed in this area. I think it's a great asset for single parents to get on their feet. Been there, done that. I could have used something like this 35 years ago. I'm grateful to see the support of the Wausau community. I hope that continues.
For us as a community to come together and support the Hagar House, I feel like is really essential in our town, especially if we're going to see strong, healthy families be maintained.
But being a part of Wausau, we definitely see the need right here in our own hometown community.
This is needed in our community. And a Christ-centered program, it will be more helpful than the community can even imagine. And we're just anxious and glad to support it.
I think it's a great idea. I think that that's part of the problem is that single mothers don't have the support that they need to be successful on their own. So anything that is in the community that's going to help with that is a great thing.
A mother, it's so important to be supported in motherhood because it is a full-time job, and I think that something like the Hagar House is going to be so invaluable to help teach skills and be there to support mothers.
It's not really something that is currently offered here in town. We have more short-term resources, but there's nothing to really take these women through those initial weeks and months
So we do see a need, and we have a strong plan and a lot of growing support from the community to make the Hagar House a successful resource in our community. So to do that, we need the conditional use permit in order to use this building in this way. So thank you.
Thank you. I think now I'm going to turn it over to Sam. Maybe you can walk us through the staff memo on this and what your findings.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah.
So according to the application, this location is at 915 North 5th Street in an existing building. Minimal modifications would have to be made to the building to accommodate the use. And they're requesting for up to 6 mothers and their children, averaging about 6 to 18-month stays. Free room and board, a lot of counseling on life skills, finding health care, finding employment, and getting people into longer-term stable housing. The application asked for institutional residential. In the neighborhood mixed-use zoning district, that's not an option, but we found that boarding houses is an appropriate category to approve it under. There's also like a block and a half north, there's a small parking lot that's existing. That one they wouldn't need the conditional use for since that's already there. It's legal non-conforming and basically grandfathered in. So basically the requirements to get a boarding house would be some screening around the property, which the building inspector can work with the applicant on that if the conditional use is approved. License and annual on-site inspection, that's not too intense. It's basically just to verify that the use hasn't changed and it's, what we approve is still what's going on. Outdoor storage has to be in the backyard, which, if you have bicycles or whatever, that's pretty typical of any home. And then a minimum of 2 parking spaces, which the off-site parking lot more than exceeds. So we don't have any concerns about the impacts to the neighborhood since it will essentially look the same. And there might be a sign requested later if this is approved that would be similar to what's out there. So we see that there's also benefit in meeting some, affordable housing continues to be a concern in the community, and this addresses that also. That's really about it. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think at this time we'll open it up for the public hearing. If you've never done this before, you'll get 3 minutes. You'll state your name and address for the record, and then you can give your comments. We are talking specifically about this 915 North 5th Street. So if there's anybody here, I would welcome you forward. Yes.
Good afternoon.
There.
I'm Patty Howard. My husband, Kirk Howard. We reside in Memo, Wisconsin. However, we are the current owners of the property and have been at 915 North 5th Street for the last 31 years. We're delighted that the Hagar House has made an offer to purchase our property. Obviously, we have an interest in selling the property, but more important than that is we strongly believe in the mission of the Hagar House. We've been longtime community supporters with the business of Kinsey Green Marketing Group for the last 50-some years. Taxpayers, and this mission of the Hagar House to provide that little bit of extra support and need for mothers and their children to firmly establish a happy, healthy home on their own by becoming, independent, productive individuals to this community so that they're able to rely on themselves and solely themselves is extremely important and personally important to me. The women that the Hagar House is going to be helping, they're determined women. They want this. They desire this. They simply need some additional support for situations that they were oftentimes put in by no fault of their own. And I just want to say that I cannot stress enough that Kirk and I strongly believe that the Hagar House will become a very valuable asset to the community of Wausau. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. If there's anyone else that would like to, yeah, feel free to approach the podium and state your name and address for the record. And you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay. Hi. Actually, I'm going to take this. Can I take this off?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. It's just easier. Hi, my name is Angela Gonzalez. I live at 502 Fulton Street, which is the house right directly between the parking lot and Kinsey Green, where this property is located. My husband is in the back there. And so, mission aside, which I think is, in general, a very good mission, our only concern would be the increased traffic going from the parking lot on we don't have a fence between the parking lot and our driveway. And so then we just want to make sure that our needs are also recognized in addition to the needs of the Hager house. So I just wanted to voice my concern about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, feel free to approach either or both.
I didn't plan on this at all.
Okay.
In fact, I didn't even know this was going on an hour ago. My name is Tracy Montevideo. My address is 1300 North 9th Avenue, apartment 6C. I am also starting a nonprofit for people that lack purpose. Among one of the things, I work with the homeless community here in Wausau, and I work with the drug addicted. I have a 32-year-old son in Green Bay, and I work with these people that would rather live and sleep in a stairwell than come off their drugs and stuff. And I'm in human services right now, and there's something called ACEs. And this is the development of a person in between the ages of like 2 to 18. And you count the ACEs. I'm talking about health. I'm talking about their self-image. I myself, I was agoraphobic till I was 47 years old. I was an alcoholic and a drug addict. I couldn't stand the way I felt. And it's because I believed all these things that I heard from my mother and just the things that happened to me. And I think what she's doing with the Hagar house to get these mothers into a safe place and their children into a safe place and get them a network of people around them. Even what I'm learning in schools is that we need to start instituting teaching to stop the cycle. Children need love. They need, I believe, God. They need to know what He feels about them and what they need support, or they're going to fall through the cracks like these people I'm working with now. Drugs is not the answer. It wasn't my answer. God was. And I didn't expect to do this, but please, because there's got to be something that stops this cycle. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm Judy Byer, and I'm at the Milray condo, 502 McIndoe. So we theoretically abut the property, although there is an alley between us, which we maintain the entrance to that alley for our condo and therefore also for the Kinsey Green property. Again, I will say too, as the other speaker did, mission aside, our concerns are the change in the zone to boarding house. We have a boarding house across the street from us on the south side of McIndoe, which is probably more well known to the police department than it is to maybe some of you. That's a boarding house. That's mixed-use neighborhood. It is not real conducive to enhancing the beauty of our neighborhood, which most of our neighbors try to do a good job at. But we're concerned about what happens if the Hagar house does not manage to financially maintain itself. What happens to the zoning then? Does it go back to the original zone, or does it stay boarding house? Now it can become another apartment building, as we have on the south side of the street. We're in a fragile neighborhood. Much has changed. I don't know if taxes have an issue here, but we've lost a lot of property around our area that's been taken off the tax rolls and turned into parking lots and things, and it's beautiful. I mean, Aspirus is going to be wonderful, and the Y is wonderful, but we're losing our sense of a family neighborhood. So what happens to the zoning? The other one we were concerned about is egress on the third floor. There are 3 floors in this building, theoretically 6 families. What is the maximum number? Ultimately, that 6 families will be. And how do you get off the 3rd floor? We're not real impressed with the fire escape on the building across the street from us, and no one has ever changed it. Now, if you have children on the 3rd floor, the mission of the Hager House is wonderful. But remember, we're a neighborhood too, and we will be impacted by this. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
I'm Todd Van Ryn. I'm actually I live at 409 South 12th Avenue, Wausau, Wisconsin, and I'm the Business and Operations Manager at Bridge Street Mission. And I can tell you this, that every week we get at least 1, if not 2 phone calls from women looking for a place to live. And we have nothing to offer. We are a men-only facility. And I can tell you the need. We just got done with a staff meeting this afternoon. We have 36 men living in our building currently right now. I have 1 open bed, and I have 6 people, 6 men, vying to get in there. It's a real need. And I think that this is an opportunity to provide something for the women as well, because right now, when we get phone calls, we direct them down to Destiny Point in Stevens Point or to Shirley's House of Hope in Marshfield. So we're, sending them to other communities, but it is a real need. So I just want the board to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to? Yes.
I don't really want to talk. I don't.
If you could state your name and address for the record.
Name is Ralph Fairchild, and I live at 522 McIndoe. Does anybody on this side of the room know me?
Please use the microphone, please, so you can take
Does anybody on this side of the room know me? No. Well, let me tell you about myself. I'm going to tell you something that my friends don't know. I sent myself to college. I sent myself to medical school. And I came home one day. My family was gone. My wife took my 2 children, 4 and 6, and moved in with her cocaine dealer. And I became the single parent of 2 daughters who are now both physicians. And I came to Wausau to try to live my life out in peace. And I'm not seeing this as helping women. I'm not saying it that way. Everybody wants to help you. But to help someone by moving problems into somebody else's neighborhood, that's not Christian. That's abusive. That's not a nice thing to do. There are plenty of places. Why are you saying no?
Can you please address your comments to the chair, please? Can you please?
I'm talking to you.
No, I'm sorry. Can we please address the comments to the chair? Excuse me. Excuse me. Yep, you are supposed to address to the chair, please.
It can be done. I did it. And I am offended by the thought that people can move into this neighborhood that I moved into in such a way. It's offensive to me.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this topic? Yeah, since it's a public hearing, we're asking you to approach the mic and you state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Leslie Forrester. I live at 502 McIndoe. I just have a quick question. Is it cast in concrete that if the zoning is changed and the mission changes, they sell it to someone else, that the zoning can't go back, that it has to stay boarding house? That's my only worry, that this will stay boarding house.
So we can't answer your question right now, but we will talk about that
That'll be
during
part of
our
your
discussion.
consideration?
Yep, we'll talk about that during our
Cool.
discussion. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And then, all for you guys, I just don't want the next thing.
Is there anybody else that would like to speak on this topic? Yes, please. If you could state your name and address for the record.
Yes, I will. My name is Corrine A. Bear Immel. I live at 526 McIndoe Street. Okay, and I guess what I want to say is I have been in the same spot that you have been in. I've been a single mom, and I was able to go to school. I was able to work. I was able to, without having to have a place to go, I was able to find, actually, I used the women's community. They helped me out. Now, I believe that their mission, what they're wanting to do is great, because you need to help people in all different fashions, whether it's a woman, a man, children that need to get out of homes that are bad. You know, there's lots of different things that we need to do. But my question is this really the right location? I question that this is the right place to put this. And it's not because it's in my neighborhood. It's because I don't know if it really is a good location. When I think of everything that's around it, I'm not sure. There's a busy street. You know, is that really a good location for young children? I don't know. I don't think it is. I think that there's a different spot in this city that would be better for this. And I think that's what we really need to think about. It isn't whether we need this, it's whether that's the location it should be in. And then I also question about that's a historical home. How is that going to affect that becoming a boarding home? You know, I don't think it's the right location. We do need something like this in Wausau, but that is it. I don't think it should be there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I may just very quickly address the.
If you, you can, sorry, you might need to state your name and record, name and address for the record,
Patty
please.
Howard.
Thank you.
Glen Drive, Merrill. The home is not designated an historical home. It just happens to be located in the Andrew Warren Historic District, but there are no regulations. It's not a historic home. I think the reason that it is such a perfect facility is because when we had it as an office, we did nothing but put in 2 very temporary walls that will come down. It is in fact a residence. It has designated bathrooms attached to bedrooms already. It has the 3 floors. Per the code, sprinkler systems, egresses will be installed. From a financial standpoint, for a facility like this, it's ready-made. And I just wanted to address the historical home for sure, and that all designations per these city codes for sprinkler systems are being met.
Thanks. All right, I'm just going to state for the record, I will let you speak again because I accidentally let you speak twice. I will let you speak again, but I'm not going to have anyone else speak twice, so please.
Okay. I just have a question. Would you put this up on East Hill?
All right, is there anybody else that would like to speak? Oh, okay. If you could state
Beth
your
Royer, 502 McIndoe Street. I live in the condos also. I'm really concerned about the zoning. What happens if this doesn't make it? I live across the street from the house that's boarding house, and I've been there when there were drug busts, watched it happen. That's all on public record. and that happens all the time there. I've seen prostitutes come in, police pick them up. So I don't want that to happen on the other side of our property. If the zoning is that way and anyone can move it out, they would have to sell it, what happens up to our neighborhood? That's a family neighborhood and is in the Andrew Warren Historical District.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Killian.
Hello, Tom Killian, 133 East Thomas Street, Alderperson, District 3. And despite the benevolent and well-meaning intentions of this plan, that I have received a substantial amount of feedback from my constituents in the neighborhood who have a host of concerns and questions. I think you heard some of them tonight, and I will talk briefly as a prelude to my request, just on some background. I think some of you are aware of the background, and it's become rather routine discussion these days in City Hall, and that is the public participation process and the public feedback process, and making sure that's done in an inclusive, meaningful way. And some of the significant concerns I've received in the past week is, despite a standard notice procedure from the city, I've received some real strong grievances from residents in the neighborhood feeling that they were not well notified, and not that that they were notified within the distance that's mandated, but that they wish they would have been notified about this better so that they could participate. And also, as an example, on the west side, when it came to a proposal along Thomas Street there from Mr. Blinker, it became very evident, not just to myself and my neighborhood and the mayor's office and Mr. Blinker himself, who told me after the public meeting that had we just had some real meaningful public involvement and feedback at the front end, we could have prevented a lot of problems and obstacles. So that is what I would suggest, not just today, but always. I know everyone tries hard, but the public process from the city of Wausau is simply insufficient. So what I would recommend is that both the city and the proposer go back to the beginning of this process and try to include more of the neighborhood and get some feedback and answer questions, because certainly there are a lot of questions and concerns right now. And barring that, I would request that the Plan Commission deny conditional use at this property. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to? Yes.
Hello, my name is Matt Poindexter. I live at 106 Novak Street. The only thing I wanted to add was regarding the location specifically. I do think this is a good location for this property, and the reason I think that is a lot of the women that are going to be coming to this home are going to be in crisis, and they may not have transportation. They may be in dire straits, and this property is located a block in either direction between two bus lines. It's very close to the Ymca, and there's a lot of community resources that are located very close to this property. So that's one reason I think there's several reasons why I think the location is a good one for this organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Okay, I'm just going to ask a couple more times if there's anybody else that would like to. Yeah, okay.
Deanne Westerhouse, North 75th Avenue, Wausau, Wisconsin. I've been, in years past, a social worker for Child Protective Services in this community for almost a decade. And the Hager House is something I wish I would have had at my disposal to assist families that would come through our doors. I certainly empathize with the people who, through the strength of themselves and the people they had around them, did those things on their own and were able to do that. It's like, that's amazing. I guess what we're targeting is the people who don't have those resources or don't personally have that wherewithal to do that on their own. One thing, though, we would be staffed all 24/7. So to address people's concerns about what would be happening at this boarding house, I'm not sure about the other one that they're referring to, but I just wanted to let people know that we would have a staff person that we would employ at the home at all times.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to approach the podium? Okay, one last time, if there's anybody here that would like to talk about the conditional use at 915 North 5th Street to allow for a long-term supportive home. Okay, this public hearing is now closed. I guess we're to the possible action portion of this. But maybe I'll open it up to Plan Commission if there are questions that need to be answered or if there's clarification that staff feels like they would like to make, I would offer that. I see Mr. Peckham is prepping his mic.
Usually good for one question. I was just wondering, and I'm not sure who would like to answer it, but I guess knowing the location and the busy street there, I'm wondering if there are any plans to fence in the yard for child play, and so that would be a concern. And if I was a neighbor who had been next to an office building where most of the people went home at 5 or 6 o'clock and stayed home over the weekend, in terms of the children playing outside and causing a noise and possible disturbance, for some that would be happy sounds and for some that would be annoying. So I wonder if you could respond to those things. The traffic safety, keeping them on the property safely, and establishing a relationship with neighbors so that you would have a sense if things happening there were becoming annoying.
Yeah, please approach them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those questions. Yes, it would be our intent to fence in the perimeter for the safety of having little children on the premises. As far as the neighbors, it would be our hope that they would engage and be a part of the family feel that we want to kind of create there. We are going to be helping, living life alongside these families and doing life with them. There will be people, community, and staff with them in the backyard playing. Our hope is that it wouldn't be too loud or noisy. We would be mindful. We would want to be good neighbors, and we would work very hard to earn their respect, trust, and maybe come to absolutely love having us there.
Okay, please, we'll have decorum tonight. Any other questions from folks here? It looks like you'd like to say something, Brad.
There were quite a few comments about the zoning and what happens
You can sit if you like.
in different situations, so are we done with that topic, Pat? I'm just going to jump to something else unless you're...
My question was answered. Thank you.
Thanks. So, I mean, one of the comments was, is this only zoned for boarding house, and that's the only thing that can go there? And the answer, obviously, is no. The underlying zoning is staying there as neighborhood mixed use. So under that zoning, there's a variety of different uses that could go there in the future if this particular use, decides to go somewhere else or whatever happens. So any of those uses that are permitted in the zoning district could go right back in there after this. If there is a new boarding house that would, say, take over for this particular one, that would be covered under this particular conditional use permit. But if there was something else, a different use, that would need to come back for a conditional use permit, just like this one would be. So there'd be a public process that's outlined in our zoning code, which includes notifying the neighbors, public hearing, et cetera. So, yeah.
So
Can
the
I-
conditional use permit carries forward past the sale, it would endure, right?
As
As
long
a
as
boarding
it's-
house, if it remained as a boarding
If
house,
it remained as...
it would
didn't-
endure.
Correct.
right?
If it didn't change use, or if there's a timeline that would, if it was nothing for a while, then that would expire after a certain time. But as long as it's a boarding house, the use, or the ownership would not...
The change of ownership wouldn't extinguish that. Got it.
Correct.
So is there anything within our zoning code to allow it to only endure with the existing ownership and structure as contemplated, or is there a vehicle to help meet some of the concerns that have been addressed, but also contemplate what ultimately would be a good thing, and I think everyone agrees is a need in the community? We're debating location and what happens after that. Is there a vehicle to accommodate this?
Sure. Well, with conditional uses, there can be certain conditions put on that for approval, whatever we feel would protect the public health and safety. But I think, tying that to a specific user, I think we have to be careful with. We've, broached that before in our attorney's offices. You kind of get a little fuzzy with, well, are you playing favorites with one person versus another? I mean, I wouldn't recommend saying this conditional use is only for this particular business. And if another business comes forward with that same use, then it has to come back for a conditional use. Because I think, again, it's based on the use, not necessarily the ownership structure of the organization.
I see Bill getting ready to.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. So tonight is just a public information meeting, not maybe a public information, it's a public hearing meeting to get the concerns, and then staff would go back, evaluate all what was discussed tonight, make a findings report for substantial evidence to present back to Plan Commission next month for a final decision to be made. No final decision should be made tonight.
Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mayor. As part and parcel of that process, of taking concerns back and looking into options and whatnot, I'd be really interested in whether or not, it's not a question of favoritism, it's a question of dealing with a particular use, and if there might be some way to work into, this conditional use, that there would sort of a covenant in there or an agreement from the property owner that should they contemplate, selling the property, then they would come back to plan to revert back to its prior zoning as part of, our conditional use. Is that something that's within the purview of our, ability to hand out a zoning decision?
I think not to sidestep the question, but we have to look and talk with the city attorney about how we can.
Right, that's all I'm asking, is that you look into that and see if that's, legal, if there's any precedent for it, because, I'm sorry, I just jumped in again, Mayor. And
Oh,
okay.
please, continue.
When I think of boarding house, I might get a certain picture in my head, and when I think of, a free service, there's like a charitable offering, I get a whole nother picture in my head, and I find a hard time, where I'm sitting right now, equating the two. It's just two different business models under the same umbrella. So I'm concerned about that, because I think we should be able to look at things more selectively than that from a strategic zoning perspective. It's not so much favoritism as it is dealing with different realities. So I would really like to see where we can go with this in terms of, going forward. Because, right now, I support the idea anyway, but I understand, the concerns about a possible future where, Hager House goes away, and then there's no telling what might come in. I will tell you that I spent about 19 years working in that house. I know it very well. And all the bathrooms and all the rooms and everything. It's a fine facility. The extra parking is 1/2 block away. That's really, really convenient. And the house, during the heyday of the agency, probably housed, 15, 16, 17 working people every day, except for Saturday and Sunday, usually. So, yeah, I think it's, considering where it's located, I think it's a fine property for this, and it's certainly a great service that we're looking at. I do respect some of the reservations, and would like to look into what our wherewithal is with regards to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Mr. Peckham?
I'm prepared to move forward this conditional use request to the September Plan Commission meeting with the proviso that before we act at that meeting, that we have an opinion from the city attorney regarding some provision that would allow some control over use of the property should this agency run out of gas.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. I guess I want to offer my support for this project. I think it's really important. This is something that we've heard a lot about. I've talked to a lot of folks who must work with Mr. Van Ryan at the Bridge Street Mission, and that's the one thing I hear is that women need a place longer term. So I'm really excited about the fact that we're doing this project. I do think it's important to bring your neighbors along. So maybe in the next month, you can have some informational meetings with your neighborhood to make sure that they understand what this is, what you're expecting, your hopes and your dreams. And the other thing is more maybe a question for staff here. I'm wondering, we rezone things at different times. Sometimes we rezone it before somebody buys it. Sometimes we had somebody build apartments and then all of a sudden we rezoned it. So I don't know if there's something to maybe help the neighbors if they like this project and they're on board with this, and you guys get to your fundraising goals, and that's when you come here and we actually do the rezone officially. I don't know. Maybe that's something to roll into that staff memo, but I think that's really important. So that's my spiel. Is there any further comment before we, yes, Mr. Borneman?
I just have one. The use of this building is going to change significantly. And I'm just wondering if there's anything that needs to be done from our fire department perspective to maybe go in, take a look at this and see, because there's going to be a great many more people in this building if this is approved than what there is now. And I'm just wondering if there's any concerns or if it's something that the fire department needs to look at as far as recommendations or something that would need to be done in order to have this group in there.
Mr. Stahl?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I can add to that too. I'll bring them along, but I've talked with Ms. Brettel, and also we've talked with some of the design folks about the building code requirements for a change of use such as this. So they're well aware of it. And maybe next month we'll have some preliminary plan. But the house, the office building was originally a home, so it does lend itself a little bit to what the proposed use would be.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the numbers and say that, it's a home that would have 24 people in it right at a time, which is a lot more than you typically expect in a home.
Correct, and we've already talked about third floor exiting and sprinkler systems, and so conversation started.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Bergerman.
Spending many years on the planning commission now, there's a couple common themes that we seem to run into, and I don't presume to have any answer on it, but I think it's something Alderperson Killian brought up, and sometimes these things come up, and feel like there isn't inclusivity, and we did the appropriate notification. Sometimes we do over notification. I was just curious if there's something more that either the council, the city, or in conjunction with the planning commission could explore two options in the sense of the procedural notice requirements. I know we have a statutory requirement, a legal requirement on that. Is there something more we can do to be more inclusive? And if that requires a council, vote or something on that, just be a recommendation on my behalf here. And then the second one we seem to always run into is, this not in my backyard. Everyone's in support of a lot of things in this community. We just can't seem to find the one square part of our community where everyone's agreeable that it should fit here. And I know we've got a community, it's a diverse patchwork, but it seems to be just a common theme that runs through this every single time that we come through here. I didn't get noticed, or I agree with it, I just don't want it I don't want it here. And, speaking of a neighbor, I live right next to the women's community. You wouldn't even know it's there. So it's more of a perception than a reality under most circumstances, but that fear is a complete unknown, and it drives more fear. So if there's anything that the council or we can do as a planning commission as far as, you know, other things, I don't know what we have the ability to do, but to kind of continue to assuage those two common themes that have run for years here, that would be great.
I think probably you're pointing to a couple of different things. You know, when the city is involved in the process of that development, I think that's where we have maybe, we should be more involved in the notification of that development. So we're holding some informational meetings about the solar array we're talking about, or maybe we have invested city money into a project, and that's where we maybe need to be more inclusive in something. This one, I don't know really how, if someone's just asking for a rezone, if that's on us, if we should be the owners of that public information meeting, that's fine. Here we are with the public hearing. I don't necessarily know. I kind of looked at Brad during the discussion, wondering what do we have invested into this, and it is kind of the process, but.
Yeah, and I guess just to, you know, reiterate, this is the public hearing, so this is where we get public comment. It's part of the process, and, you know, the Plan Commission has the ability to, you know, delay action, to request that they do other things with the neighborhood. We can come back. There is another meeting. It's a public meeting. It's not necessarily a public hearing per se, but, you know, the chairs of different committees have always allowed public comments in different forms at public meetings. So, you know, there is a second meeting here in these chambers, plus whatever recommendations that we may give them to do outside, you know, outreach. We can't necessarily do everything ourselves. We can do what we can, and again, the commission can determine if that's sufficient or not. In some cases, you know, we've had people say, well, I want to approve this tonight. You know, there was no public comment, and it's like, let's just get going, you know, enough bureaucracy. And then other times, there's a different viewpoint. So, you know, it's kind of dependent on the public showing up and what type of testimony we get. And, you know, our process can cover some of that, but it's may not work in every single case. So, you know, we'd have some flexibility to, you know, delay action, or, like I said before, put some conditions on it. So, I don't know. In terms, well, go ahead.
No, thanks. I just seen it for a couple times, and there's some people that have done this really well, right? Have held a bunch of meetings and gained the consensus, and I don't know if we have a one-pager process to a successful, you know, public hearing, or what that looks like. But, you know, we've seen some ones come through here, and you'd think that there would be greater opposition. They've already built the consensus, so just appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Peckham.
Yeah, I do like Mr. Lenz brought up our new two-step approval process, where people are likely to feel less like this has been sprung on them and rammed through, because that really doesn't go well. But I would ask that at a future meeting of the Planning Commission, that we review the notifications that for different applications that go out, how far we go, whether it's the adjacent 3 properties or the adjacent 3 blocks, or I don't know what the guidelines are, but I think we should look at, see if we feel that's adequate. I think there was at least one speaker here tonight that felt that they were just outside that line, and it would have been nice to know. So if we could discuss that at a future meeting separately, I think that'd be good. But I would also ask that we rewind and give the fire department representative a chance to respond to the other commissioners' inquiry about the fire safety and whatever. I don't know if you visited the property or whatever.
Yeah, we've been to that property a number of times just for normal fire inspection. This changing, just with the people staying overnight, obviously, talking with Bill, there are going to be some conditional with alarms and sprinkler system. But I think that we might be jumping the gun a little bit at this point.
Okay, but you will be involved.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Are there any other questions or comments from this body? Otherwise, the motion on the table is to forward this to our next meeting with some of the information we requested from staff. So all of those in favor of moving forward with the conditional use at 915 North Fifth Street to allow for long-term supportive home in a neighborhood mixed-use zoning district can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, we are moving on to our second public hearing of the night. It is discussion and possible action. Maybe I'll wait for folks to, thank you. Thank you for attending. Sometimes it's easier to, thank you. Okay, our next item is discussion and possible action on approving a conditional use at 913 North 3rd Street to allow for an off-site parking lot in a downtown periphery mixed-use zoning district. This is for Woodson YMCA Foundation, Inc. Is there anybody here that would like to maybe give a little presentation on this before we open the public hearing? Yeah, please. Hi there.
Good evening. I'm Jim Borisenko, REI Engineering in Wausau. We're here just to represent the YMCA and the proposed conditional use. Basically, it was the facility had a small office building on it. Once upon a time, the office building was raised, and in its place, it got paved over just to use as a satellite parking facility for the YMCA, which is approximately a block to the south from there. And so there was a sequence of steps that must occur because it's a conditional use. Off-site parking is conditional use in the zoning district. And we worked with city staff to develop a plan that would enhance the property with some landscaping around the perimeter. So right now it's a purely paved asphalt parking lot. And we went back and we cut out, or the proposal is to cut out sections of that parking lot and incorporate a nice little bit of landscaping to spruce it up a little bit. And that landscaping would consist of trees, shrubbery, and some perennials. Additionally, we are also implementing a storm sewer catch basin to help capture any site runoff within the property and direct it into the city's storm sewer. So pretty simple request, but just kind of working through the official process. So
Thank you. Sam, maybe I'll toss it to you if you have anything you'd like to share.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. 17 spaces, basically any parking lot that, is standalone on its own parcel is a conditional use. But there aren't any design requirements above what a normal parking lot that's, on the same site as the facility would have to follow. And then, I don't know if Bill had anything to add or not, but that's pretty much all I had.
Mr. Hebert, I don't know if you have anything.
Not really, no. They're doing what we asked them to do, so.
That's great. Thank you for working with us. All right. So I will, at this point, open up the public hearing for anybody here who would like to talk about the conditional use at 913 North 3rd Street to allow for an off-site parking lot. If anybody's here would like to speak on this, you get 3 minutes. Okay, I'm going to ask a second time if anybody is here and would like to speak about the conditional use at 913 North 3rd Street. All right, last time before we close this, we're talking about a conditional use at 913 North 3rd Street to allow for an off-site parking lot in a downtown periphery mixed-use zoning district. Okay, public hearing is now closed. I guess I will open it up to any questions that we might have as a plan commission here. Any questions or possibly a motion? Oh, I have a motion. So I'm going to guess that the motion. All right, so we're moving forward, I'm guessing, with conditions outlined by staff, and okay, motion by Bergman. Who did I get a second from? Bolkin? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments here? All right, all of those in favor of forwarding the conditional use at 913 North 3rd Street to allow for off-site parking lot in a downtown periphery mixed-use zoning district can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Next on our agenda, item number 3 is discussion and possible action on approving a conditional use at 8454 Highland Drive to allow for a mobile diagnostic imaging as an accessory use in a medium industrial district. This is from Shared Medical Technology. I think we all remember having the discussion here, but I see Mr. Neal
Move to
with a hand.
approve.
We have a move by Neal, a second by Brugman. Any discussion here? Questions, comments? I'm not seeing any, so all of those in favor of approving that conditional use at 8454 Highland Drive to allow for mobile diagnostic imaging as an accessory use in a medium industrial zoning district can signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? All right, thank you. That passes unanimously. Next item is our next meeting date and future agenda items for consideration. Looks like September 21st is our day. We'll see you all back here. I would take a motion for the last item. Motion, do I have a second? Second, all right, we don't need to vote on that, but thank you very much for joining us tonight.